Let's answer this question. Can a can an ambitious person live a balanced life? And when I ask this question, number one, I have to say, so I asked this question on my Facebook page, my profile, and I had some dear friends actually take the time to comment on it. And I appreciate so much the feedback. And it was fascinating because I was literally thinking about this myself, like, what does this all mean? And can we? And the reason it came up was because I was wondering, I was having this conversation of who do I help serve? And how would I define them? And one of the words that kind of came up was ambitious. They are ambitious. And I'm like, ooh, do we like that word? And for some reason, I had there has been a negative response to ambition. And so I kind of spent this last week diving into that. And so ambition and balance, especially for women, for Christians, and for entrepreneurs. So the general feedback that I got, and I would love more feedback, feel free to cast your vote on that post. The general feedback I got back was that number one, no, or it's possible, but not probable. And number one, I do not disagree with that answer. Another answer I got back was yes, maybe, depending on your definitions. And I certainly think that that is a great answer. So I thought, if you identify as ambitious, how do you lead a balanced life? I want to answer that. I'm going to answer that towards the end. But if you are like me and you even have a problem with ambition, let's dive into that, where that might be coming from. And now you need to know that from my perspective, I grew up in a very conservative Christian church that taught that God's preferred, maybe they use stronger words than preferred, way was for the men to leave the home and the women to stay home and take care of the kids. So it doesn't sound like women even need ambition in that kind of definition of life. And I really kind of wondered. And so sometimes I felt like an oddball because I felt like, well, ambitious might be a word that I would talk about me. Like I do like to go after things. I do like to win. I do like to go after things hard. And is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Is that keeping me from being a great mom and all these things? Lots of questions. I think about these things a lot. Well, recently I was talking to my daughter about, her childhood. And she's like, Mom, you were like this. This is her description of me. She's like, you were like the stay-at-home mom with a CEO mindset. And I'm like, oh, that's hilarious. So, because she's like, you just did things and ran them as systems. And so anyway, it's kind of amazing how your gifts just kind of come out wherever you're at. The things that you've been gifted to do are going to come out of you, sometimes even unconsciously. But can an ambitious person lead a balanced life? And if that word ambition bothers you, are you intentionally putting the brakes on your life? Do you feel bad about being an ambitious person? Or do you feel like too much ambition might be a bad thing? Or finally, do you feel like you struggle with having a balanced life as an ambitious person? Because listen, in some circles, ambition gets a bad rap. One of the things that I think kind of hints towards ambition might be a bad thing is there's this passage in scripture in Luke chapter 2, where it's talking about the rich man. And it says in verse 16, the ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentifully. And he thought within himself, saying, well, what shall I do? Because I have no room where to bestow all my fruits. And he says, this is what I'll do. I will pull down my barns. I'll build greater, and there will I bestow all my fruits and all my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Take thine ease, eat, drink, be merry. But God said unto him, thou fool, This night thy soul shall be required of thee. Then whose shall those things be which thou hast provided? So is he that lays up treasure for himself and is not rich towards God. So growing up, for some reason, I thought this was telling me not to be ambitious, because ambitious will make you neglect the things of God. Like, listen, if you're ambitious, you won't have time for God. And it is certainly true that we have plenty and plenty and plenty of examples of people that are ambitious and they don't have time for other areas of life. They don't have time for God. They don't have time for their family. They don't have time for even taking care of their health. And so that, I think, is one of the reasons why ambition itself gets a bad rap, because we can get very, very myopic. In fact, I was having a conversation with a client this week where she was like, when I have a project in front of me and, I can get very myopic in it. And it's like, yeah, that's part of the way your brain works. You get super hyper focused, use it to your advantage, not to your disadvantage. But ambition, the term itself just means a strong desire to do or to achieve something, typically requiring determination and hard work. It's the desire and the determination to achieve success. Now, according to that definition, that's not bad. It's a desire and a determination to achieve success. I think this is why my daughter called me a stay-at-home mom with a CEO mindset. I am like, I'm going to be successful at stay-at-home mom. I'm going to be successful at homeschooling. We're going to be successful in this family thing. We're going to be successful in gardening, and we raised chickens for a while. I just bring a very, very determined mindset to my goals. So, number one, let's just decide that ambition itself is not a bad thing. It's just a strong desire to and determination to do something successfully. Now, I love that definition. And here's why I love that definition. Because Joshua 1:8 then has this formula for good success, where it talks about this book of the law shall not depart out of your mouth, but you're going to meditate on it day and night. That you may, oh my goodness, I'm totally blanking out, that you may observe to do according to all that's written therein. For then you'll make your way prosperous, and then you'll have good success. So right there in the Bible, telling us to pursue after good success and actually how to get it. So ambition in itself is not a bad thing. Ambition is kind of the way that you just go after your goal. So really, the ambition piece, is it good or bad? Well, it depends on the goal that you're going after. Is my goal worthy of pursuing ambitiously? Now, other people, we hate the word goals sometimes because we hear goal and we think failure. Put that aside. I think I've talked about that before on the podcast. You can look up those episodes. Let's move on to the word balance now. Now, can an ambitious person live a balanced life? Possible, not probable, was the general consensus. And I do not agree. Do not disagree with that. Because one of the problems is, yes, sometimes our areas of ambition are exciting and they draw us. They're just exciting. We're making progress towards something. And in that excitement, we can forget about other aspects of our life. It actually takes a lot of measure of intention to do more than one thing well. If I can just say it that way. To do more than one thing well. And I'm not even talking about it at the same time. I'm just like talking about bringing more than one thing together. In fact, I just had a fascinating conversation with a woman who's getting ready to study this topic. And there is this assumption that if you're successful in one area, then you're just going to be a great leader. And that's not always a given, because you can be very ambitious towards a minor goal, but you may not be ambitious towards what's the word here? Global goal, like bringing multiple areas along. But a balance, one of the mistakes about balance is that we think balanced life means doing all things equally well equal time, equal attention. And this idea about even the word balance, like work-life balance, it came out of the United Kingdom in the 1980s, according to Google. That is as deep as my research went. I am not, a deep researcher of all things, but it was talking about the women's liberation movement and the desire for working women to have better conditions for work-life balance, better hours, maternity leaves, things like that. By the way, this is actually a God idea, that life is not all about work. So if you look back all the way to the beginning of Genesis, there's the idea of the balanced life, that we work, that we relax in the evening, that we rest, that we have connectivity, that we have relationships, all three of these happening in every day. So if we go back to that initial passage about that rich man who, spent his whole life gathering, fruits and going to build bigger barns and then going to say, now I'm going to quit. And he's like, you fool, you neglected the most important thing in pursuing this other thing. But he neglected all things. He even neglected rest. He neglected taking time off. He did not live a balanced life. And so this idea, this balance is actually, you have to watch your definition of it. What is your definition of balance? So for me, I would define balance as I spend part of my time making a contribution to other people, making a living. And I also have a portion of my schedule that I make connection with the ones that I care about. And then there's also a piece where I take care of myself. I think that is actually a very biblical view of balance. This idea of work, relax in the evening, rest so that you can do the whole thing back the next day. You have to take care of yourself so you can take care of others. So that's my definition of balance, is putting those three pieces together. It's not a matter of equal time. In fact, if you look at it, I give more time to me than anybody else because I need 8 hours of sleep. Break it all up, I get the most. But that equips me to bring a better energy and a better ability to the other areas of my life. All right. So let's go to the question, how do we who are ambitious for a certain goal also live a balanced life? All right. So you've come to the idea, maybe I am ambitious, maybe ambitious is not a bad thing. Maybe but I still tend, maybe I already know this about me. My ambition tends to get me deeply, deeply focused into certain things. And I do have a tendency to forget or neglect. Okay, number one, you guys, this is just so natural. Like I said, certain things grab our attention and they want to hold on to our attention. I remember growing up, I remember when my mom, she used to do a lot of sewing and she would sew us dresses. And I mean, you finally get a chance to get all the, the sewing machine out and the fabric and the pattern laid out, and you are finally ready to get to the fun part. I mean, you've done all the cutting. Now you're getting to the fun part, which I always consider, which was running the sewing machine, putting the pieces together. You just don't want to quit when you're making progress. And so I know many times, like I would stay up late to finish a project. She would stay up late to finish a project. She would push supper back or, feel frustrated, rightfully so, when she had to interrupt her project to do supper. It's frustrating. That is ambition, kind of like getting interrupted by real life. It's kind of annoying. Same thing happens when we are trying to juggle multiple things that are important to us. I want to raise my family well. I want to take care of my kids. I'm also trying to start a business, or I've got this ministry that I'm really passionate about. And there's so many demands on my time and attention. Maybe it would just be easier if I just weren't ambitious. Okay. I don't think so. I don't think so. And I think I'm going to share this at the very end. But how do we, who are ambitious for a certain goal, also live a balanced life? Well, number one, choose, as in choose what exactly is important to us, how important it is to us, and how much I am willing to sacrifice to achieve it. And I put the air quotes around the word sacrifice because so many times we think of sacrifice as a very, very negative thing or a heavy thing, or, us being unhappy. But I just see sacrifice as us giving up something lesser for something greater. I sacrifice eating dessert so I can lose weight because I desire to lose weight more than dessert. I sacrifice a little bit of sleep when I'm working on a project because I really want to see, the completion of a project. I sacrifice, what are some other? I sacrifice spending all my money and putting some of it in savings so that I have some more for retirement or for a rainy day. I sacrifice something of lesser value and importance to me so that I can pursue something higher. So, what I love about this is we can decide to what level we want to sacrifice. So, I remember when I was in my pre minimalism, going to minimalism stage in my life, when I was decluttering everything in the house. And I so desired a streamlined home with hardly anything that I sacrificed most of our belongings, just got rid of it. And it didn't feel like a big sacrifice because I was looking for what I wanted more. All right. This idea of sacrifice, this idea of choice, we've got to choose. Joshua 24:15 says, choose you this day whom you're going to serve. And then it goes on to say, lays out the options. And then he says, but as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. I love that Joshua 1:8 talking about how we have good success opens up the book of Joshua. And at the end of the book, it closes with, but make a choice. You can't do it all. You can't do both. So life is about choices. And it's the quality of our choices that determine the quality of our life. I've said it before, the quality of our relationships determines the quality of our life. Both of those go hand in hand. It's choices. So know your priorities and know the order of your priorities. So when I was younger and feeling overwhelmed, I literally could not wrap my mind around balancing a 40-hour plus career with all the things that I wanted to do with my family, with the involvement that I wanted to have in my family. So in our family, my husband worked way more than full time as building his business as an entrepreneur. And I just stayed home and took care of the home front as much as I possibly could to lighten the load on him. That was a choice that we made. Now, we could have made a different choice of, sending our kids to school, April getting a job, and then we could have taken, a week or 2 week vacation. We would have had a little bit more money. But we made a choice there. What was more important to us? And I'll be honest, I do not regret the decision that I made to stay home with my kids. I am a very, how do I say this? I'm a very people-oriented person, as in, I just wanted to be very involved in my kids' life. I wanted to have that kind of family. And so I was willing to give up a lot of things that other people choose not to give up, and that's fine. They make different choices. It's choosing, okay? Make your choices. Make them confidently, and then live them out graciously, boldly. Okay, so if you're ambitious for a certain goal, but you also want to live a balanced life, number one, choose. So decide, kind of like make a list of all your priorities and know the order of those. And if something happens where something has to fall out, you know which one is you're going to keep in and which one's going to get lesser of your time. To me, that is the first step of living a balanced life. For example, like I said, we were doing gardening and raising chickens, but there came a time when my back went out and it's like, oh, gardening's out, chickens are out. That is not as important as my health. My health is going up on that list. We're going to start exercising more. Then step number 2, after choice, after choosing your priorities and the order of them, schedule what's important to you on a daily or a weekly basis. So even if, let's say you're like my husband back in those days that was working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, he still had the ability to schedule in our family as a priority. Now, he may not have been able to drop everything and come home every single day at 5 p.m. That's not how we did that. But he worked his schedule around the times when he said he was going to be there. Like, hey, we've got to, we're going to celebrate somebody's birthday here. He put those in his calendar and then he worked his work around it. That is literally going to look different for every single family. But you do have a choice there, and you can schedule around it. No matter how busy you are, you have the ability to do that. And if you don't feel like you have the ability, and if you don't see how you can, if you do not feel in control of your own schedule, get in control of your own schedule. If you don't know how, contact me. I'll help you. All right. Give yourself time. Oh, also, if you're ambitious, you really have the goals that you're wanting to aim towards, but bounce the thing. Schedule in time to make progress towards those goals. Got a desire to run a marathon. Schedule in time daily to make progress towards that goal. You don't have to do all of your training for a marathon in one day. It's actually better not to, but use a schedule to your advantage. And then thirdly, and this is the part where we all kind of get a little bit squirrely, but this is the necessary part. If we want to live a balanced life, and that balance also includes our health. Oh my gosh, I am talking to so many of my dear, dear entrepreneurs here. Eliminate, delegate, or automate the rest. You cannot do everything, but you can do the most important things. You do not have time for everything, for sure. I'm not saying that you do. Never have said that you do. But you do have time for the most important things. Because finally, this idea that there is not enough time is a tactic from the enemy. This is not a God notion. This is an enemy notion. And this idea that there isn't enough time, it does 3 different things to us. Number 1, it keeps Christians in a passive state. So there's not enough time. So, we can't live a balanced life and have ambition, drop the ambition, and just do what everybody else is doing. Passive state there. It also keeps us in a distracted state because we're trying to do too many things and we're missing the things that are most important to us. And then thirdly, and this is a big one, and for some reason, some people equate this with spirituality, but it is not. It keeps us in an exhausted state. Read through the scriptures carefully. People fall into sin when they're in an exhausted state. We act like, well, if I get really, really tired, that's when I finally give up, just give it to God. I can't carry this any longer. I've worked 20 hours, 25 hours this day. That's what some of you guys are trying to do, working 25 hours in a 24-hour day. No, you're not doing your best. Okay. Look, there are seasons in life, no doubt, that are busy and that are hard, but they should be seasons. They should not be constant. And also, we can look at those and say, what can we learn from this season that we can do better for the next season? We just, when we believe the idea that there's not enough time, then we live from the idea that there's not enough time. And so we do not, and when we're living from the idea there's not enough time, we're not actually seeing the time that we have and how we can invest it and how we can create more time and how we can question our use of time and how we can honestly say no to some things. Okay. All of that to say, yes, theoretically, an ambitious person can live a balanced life if they know what they want, why they want it, and they schedule in the other things that are important to them. And well, and then honor their schedule. do not do not let your ambition drive you. You are not a helpless victim to your ambition. You use your ambition and use it to drive yourself faster to your goals while not letting go of the other things that are important to you. And if you struggle with this word ambition, I hope that this has helped you realize, hey, it's not a bad thing. It's just a desire and a determination to have good success. Okay. All right. Well, that's all I've got for you today. I look forward to hearing your comments. If you're listening to this on the podcast, do me a favor, if you would, and leave me a review and share it with somebody else that you think it might benefit. I would appreciate that so much to help get the word out. And I look forward to talking to you next week. Bye-bye.